Hello, welcome to another episode of Namtaro Talks. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded an episode. Honestly, kind of already know these episodes are backlogged. And I've talked about the podcasting bug every now and then. Sometimes I go without recording anything for about several weeks. Sometimes I record several episodes several days in a row. But I had a couple ideas that I've been sitting on for a while. This one, it is really recent. The other day, I watched a documentary called Dear Kelly. It's by this guy named Andrew Callahan, who has a YouTube channel called Channel 5 News. The premise of his YouTube channel is pretty much he goes around and interviews people. He is a relatively objective journalist, and he goes to different environments, like the most crazy environments, whether it be protests, rallies, parties, spring breakers. And he just interviews them candidly, honestly, without judging them. Well, the documentary Dear Kelly was about the time he met this guy named Kelly at a rally or a protest or something like that. And after he interviewed him and got in a conversation with him, he got intrigued, and Kelly was pretty open about his background and where he stands and what he believes in. And they just kind of kept in contact since then. However, the premise of the documentary is that Kelly, to say the least, he's a bit of an extremist, and he went down a whole bunch of conspiracy theory rabbit holes and QAnon and stuff like that. And I know there are many of those in America right now. But Channel 5 News, he wasn't there to really judge Kelly. He just wanted to see why Kelly became the way he is, what led him down that path. Are you ever interested in watching this documentary? Yeah, it's worth it. You can check it out. But a spoiler alert, if you want to get spoiled, you can take a break here. So long story short, Kelly is an extremist with very strong right-wing political views and very unproven. No doubt a Trump supporter, of course. But it's that typical stereotype, with the hats and the big signs and the flags and spouting conspiracy theories, such as people at abortion clinics eat the babies, or Kobe Bryant's death was an inside job. I don't really like talking about these theories because they are ridiculous and baseless. It gets into a pretty interesting spectrum, because I guess there are people who truly believe these things and are truly ignorant, truly hateful. And there are others who, they weren't like this before. Something happened to them in their lives. And you can't necessarily, of course, part of it is to blame. Some things are in their control, other things are out of control. Of course, there's no excuse for them to become the way they are, and especially how they treat people and how they function in society and affect their community. But the thing that made the documentary more interesting, how it started, was that Kelly let Andrew watch some of his home videos. I will interchangeably say Andrew and Channel 5 News. I'll just say Andrew because Channel 5 News is a mouthful. In the home videos, it portrayed Kelly with a happy family life with a wife and 3 kids in a big suburban house with stairs and a huge backyard. And they loved animals, and they had a whole bunch of random animals in their home. A bunch of dogs, a bunch of cats, a bunch of rabbits, pigs, goldfish, I think gerbils, hamsters. And they would have traditional family events and celebrate all the holidays, and they lived in a little nice cul-de-sac neighborhood. The video, they were all genuinely happy. It was the Kelly in the home videos was nothing like the Kelly that you've currently seen in the documentary, the one that Andrew was interviewing. The Kelly had a shadow. He had a ghost. He keeps blaming this guy named Joyner, that Bill Joyner supposedly stole his house, like made him sign some kind of predatory loan. And when he couldn't pay that loan or read the full terms of the contract, Bill Joyner pretty much seized his home. So their house was foreclosed on. They lost the house, so they had to move out. But then Kelly was depressed and crazy. Nothing in the documentary showed that he was violent or abusive or anything. But of course, it put a strain on his family. He got divorced from his wife. His wife got custody of the kids. He's estranged from most of the kids. They still talk to him. Still try to find ways to bond with him. They're just not that close to him. They're very estranged from him. He's not a father figure anymore. He can't really support them. He's not in a good mental state. Andrew goes to interview his kids. One of his sons sometimes attends these rallies and protests with him. I don't know if he truly believes that stuff, but it's more of he tries to bond with his dad through those activities. Kelly also has a daughter in college. I forgot if she was a lesbian or bisexual or something. Of course, that identity would go against with what Kelly currently stands for and believes in. But he still accepts her. He still loves her. Yes, but Kelly is obsessed with this banker or loan guy named Bill Joyner. He just hates him. He keeps talking about him. He tells strangers on the street, "Hey, do you know Bill Joyner? He's a bad guy. Don't trust him, blah, blah, blah." And he has signs that lays out all the wrongs that Bill Joyner supposedly did against him. But the interesting thing is, he never met Bill Joyner face to face. He doesn't even know what Bill Joyner looked like. Of course, Andrew had developed a slight personal attachment to Kelly. Of course, he and Kelly's kids want Kelly to help Kelly snap out of it. So one thing they tried to do was find Bill Joyner, but they couldn't. He's pretty elusive, I guess. Also considered hiring an actor to pretend to be Bill Joyner. The premise of it was have Bill Joyner and Kelly sit down face to face, talk to talk, man to man, and that was not feasible. Opted to stage an intervention for Kelly. The intervention was with his ex-wife, his 3 kids, and they all read testimonies of how much they love their dad, and doing to them is tearing the family apart and straining their relationships with him. Of course, it gets emotional. Andrew, the documentary guy, shares his own testimony, and there's like tears shed, there's hugging, and Kelly seems contrite and remorseful and repentant. He agreed to go to rehab. I missed an important part. Yeah, getting to the intervention, I might have gotten a bit ahead of myself. After the failed attempts to find Bill Joyner or pretend to Bill Joyner, to be Bill Joyner, he began to question, is Kelly really telling the truth? Is there more to this story than meets the eye? Because after all this investigation and interviewing, he didn't really deep into what Kelly's true story is or where he really stands. So I believe Kelly was affluent because he was a lawyer, so he was able to afford that kind of life and lifestyle for his whole family. He became accustomed to it. I mean, they weren't big balling, but it was a lot of it's unnecessary, you know, all of its luxuries. As a man, as a provider, he took pride in that. He said that everything he owned in the house, it was part of his identity. And when Bill Joyner supposedly stole it from him, he lost a part of himself. After a little bit more digging, it turns out that Kelly wasn't the perfect lawyer. He had a whole bunch of ethical violations, and he was disbarred at one point, rightfully so, because he engaged in a lot of misconduct. And the loan that he signed, I guess it was just a standard loan, not like a predatory payday shark loan or whatever. Maybe he didn't read the fine print. Needless to say, Kelly was not completely innocent in all of this. And I have some of my opinions regarding Kelly in the documentary afterwards. Flash forward, Kelly was in rehab for about 90 days and not much change. He continued to believe in the crazy right-wing conspiracy theories and go to all their events, missed out on some important family matters. There were some events that he promised that he wouldn't go to, but he did so anyway. He's the same rhetoric spouting, sign waving guy that you see at the beginning of the video. And Andrew said it best: you can present the help, you can present the resources, but at the very end of the day, the person they have to want to change themselves. They have to want to help themselves. It's like that one saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So they're pretty much back to square one. Kelly's still crazy. Honestly, his family must be exhausted and strained. Kelly squandered his chance to rebuild trust, to do rehab. And I know people do relapse several times, but after each single time, the rate of trust erodes. You won't get that same grace like every successive time. Honestly, Kelly, he's wasting his time. He has a whole bunch of memorabilia for all these protests and events. He keeps it all in his car. He drives them to the protest sites and hands them out to people. Yeah, back then there was that one Westboro Baptist Church. I'm sure they're still around, but they're not as prominent or crazy as before. That kind of attitude, that kind of rhetoric, that kind of in-your-face hate spewing demeanor, it's very cultish. It's very annoying. It's very illogical. And Kelly, he is in so deep, and so many other people are in so deep, but they are brainwashed. They'll likely believe it until they die. Even if they get out of it, they're not going to be reaccepted with open arms. It's like being in that cult. It's their sense of family, that sense of security. The documentary presented a status that a lot of people in those situations, or a lot of the January 6th protesters, they underwent economic hardship, or they had houses foreclosed upon, they had bankruptcies declared. I understand sometimes you weren't given a fair chance. You were dealt a raw hand. You were dealt a bad situation. You want something to believe in. It makes you a bit more vulnerable to be converted or go down a rabbit hole and find different things to blame, even though you are now a puppet of someone else's agenda. It's like some kind of inferiority complex. It's like you feel like someone was out to get you in the first place. This cult, maybe there's a figurehead, maybe there's some kind of savior, and they promise something to you. Like, oh, you're on the right side, you believe in this, and you follow your cause, you spread our message, you get everything you want, or you take back what was owed for you. It's an ugly situation, if anything, because the people in the cult don't win. The people who have to deal with them in society don't win. There's no critical thinking. There's no self-reflection. It's just blame and exceptionalism. Like, oh, it's not my fault. It's your fault. They did it to me. There's absolutely no personal responsibility. So I'm guessing at this point, I'm relatively done talking what happened in that documentary. After watching it, I don't have sympathy for Kelly, you know? It's unfortunate what happened to him, that his family got torn apart, that he made some bad decisions, that he lost his home. But truth be told, he brought it upon himself. He was an unethical lawyer who had a whole bunch of violations. That's why he got disbarred in the first place and lost his livelihood that was taking care of his family. He shouldn't have put himself in a situation like that. And they're on the side that tries to spew personal responsibility and pulling yourself up by your bootstrap. But personally, a lot of them are hypocritical and blind to their fortunate circumstances, and even sometimes abusive too. Yeah, Kelly's decisions hurt his family. He is not the victim in this. He is not completely innocent in this. He has plenty to blame. Of course, Bill Joyner guy, it's partly his fault too. He shouldn't have let Kelly sign a loan like that. But Kelly should have known better to not be in a position to require that loan, or he should have been much more careful about signing that loan in the first place. Honestly, on the political spectrum, I am not fully sure where I stand anymore. I'm definitely 100% not a Republican or a conservative. However, liberals and Democrats have many misgivings and many contradictions. Mention poor messaging. All on the entire spectrum, you try to find a balance between it all. Sometimes it's not even about politics, you know? Like I say, sometimes you're dealt a raw hand. Sometimes bad things just happen to you. Sometimes you're just not lucky. But other times, whatever is in your control, you had that choice. You had that decision. You had the opportunity to either build your life up or protect what you already have. You had the opportunity to do your due diligence and research and learn as much as you can about certain situations in order to make the informed decisions and the informed thought processes and be the supposedly positive influence for your friends and family and loved ones and peers and community. Kelly, in the end, he prioritized the wrong things, if anything. I saw those home videos. A lot of it was, I wouldn't say lavish and extravagant, but it's unnecessary, you know? It's like the typical American consumerism with a whole bunch of random stuff in the house. I mean, dude, you got 3 kids, and why are you having all these other animals in your house? Those are like extra kids, and they all have their own problems. They all need medical attention and feeding too. That's why you gotta be careful when you pick and choose certain hobbies. I know certain hobbies are free or less expensive than others, but hobbies, they should also be feasible, you know? If a hobby is too expensive or dangerous or time-consuming or stressful or unnecessary, it might be time to reconsider. I'm not saying that you should refrain from those hobbies, saying that you gotta take into consideration how it affects more important aspects of your life. I'm not saying that the animals were the reason that led to Kelly's downfall, but from what I've seen, it's also about imaging and face. He tried to portray the perfect family life in America, with it living in the suburbs, with the big house and the big yard and all the extra stuff, and hosting a whole bunch of events. It was some kind of giant flex, or he's trying to impress somebody. But in the end, he pretty much dug the hole that he is currently in. I shouldn't be here to judge Kelly. I mean, I'm not perfect. I made many bad decisions in my own life, but I'm approaching like the point where I can sort of see the consequences of those past decisions that would have affected my career, my financial standing, development milestones I need to get to in my life. Trajectory my life took, I ended up having to owe and pay more money than I needed. I lost several friendships over the years. Sometimes that's the nature of it. Sometimes it was based on my poor decision. But I have to either own up to it or you learn to live with it. Now you don't get closure. Kelly never got closure. He never learned. With the intervention that's super heartfelt with all the crying and hugging and letter writing, he just went back to his old ways. I mean, it's not as bad as being on drugs or alcohol. It's still damaging regardless. It's kind of like relatively categorize life trajectory into two sections, if any. Striving for a dream. If you achieve that dream, trying your best to protect it. Of course, both stages need to be done reasonably, of course. You wouldn't sacrifice everything unnecessarily or your own soul just for that dream. Protecting that dream, you don't want to inadvertently harm your loved ones and the benefits of that dream in the first place. Kelly, he probably screwed up with both. He's not a stupid guy. A smart guy who was college educated and passed the bar. Very well spoken and eloquent. But because of his bad decisions, he affected his own family, his wife, his love life. He tore it all apart. He lost it all. And because of that, he didn't internally own up to it. Went down the rabbit hole. He blamed some guy, and he blamed this side or that side, or this policy, that policy, this or that administration, and the government. Became so delusional, and the ironic thing is, he's so too delusional to see how delusional he is, at the expense of everything that he once held dear. The documentary wasn't really about politics, sort of like a different side of the human psyche, the trajectory of a human life, if anything. Nothing is forever, everything is fleeting, but due to either circumstances out of your control, but in this case, it was circumstances in his control. Yeah, this may end up being one of the shorter episodes. I mean, I said all I could about it, and it's literally just one documentary and my take on it. But the sad thing is, there are so many Kellys out there. People who take no personal responsibility. Some are fed a silver spoon or dealt a raw hand. Instead of trying to make their own life better, they start blaming other people. The right says like the left thinks they're victims. Well, the right has victims too. It's like the left and the right are not blameless in this. Like a culture of victimhood. Like, oh, poor me. Bad things happen to me. Admit, sometimes I'm like that too, and I'm not proud of it. Sometimes there really are things that I have absolutely no control over. But what I do have control over, I try to make the most of it. I try to learn from it and try to avoid those terrible situations again. Like I say, you either learn from others' mistakes or you learn from your own mistakes. Mistakes, they can be inconvenient, expensive, time-consuming, damaging. You have to learn from them to try to prevent them from happening again, or maybe pass it forward and prevent others from making the same mistakes you did. To end up dying for or dying while believing in a cause that doesn't care about you. I don't hate Kelly. I mean, Kelly is a human being, and he made so many mistakes. I mean, he's 62 in the documentary. I think at that age, you would learn by that point, or at least have a better idea how life works and how you should conduct yourselves and treat other people. You become bitter and jaded. You hang around with people who are like that, and then you might end up raising kids who are like that. Even though you don't purposely raise them, they are around you, they see how you are, they think that's how life is. Set a poor example, and in the end, nobody wins. You don't win. Society doesn't win. There's absolutely nothing positive or constructive to come out of it. It's just really unfortunate. He could have done so much good. Life could have taken a so much better path. And he's just another sign-waving, hate-spewing, obnoxious doofus. Millions of others out there. And it's very difficult, if not impossible, to ever get through to them. Like, we gotta deal with the Kellys of the world. These Kellys, they vote, they're in positions of power, decisions that affect our lives, all because they had some kind of bad upbringing or bad things happened to them and they didn't take responsibility for it. Yes, so long story short, don't be a Kelly. Kind of see yourself going down that path, snap out of it, get the help you need, get therapy, talk to confidence, talk to loved ones, do your due diligence, look into self-help, find a better path, dig deep, look back, just do whatever it takes. Like, think for yourself. Don't let some conspiracy theorist or red pill, whatever, online rabbit hole think for you. At the end of the day, you have only yourself. You're surrounded by a whole bunch of other people who are in that delusion. I know it could be lonely sometimes, but you saw the light. You know better. You are just another sheep full of hypocrisy and contradictions. I mean, I don't have the moral high ground here. I'm not in a position to preach, just relaying my thoughts based on my experiences. And honestly, if you have a Kelly in your life, if it depends how close you are to them, how much you really care about them. You can't change them. You can't force them. You can't really argue with them. You gotta stand up to them. You gotta present where you stand with them. It's not about the past. It doesn't matter how that Kelly used to be, the good memories you used to have. We're talking about the present Kelly, how they are now. And it's not necessarily always about cults or MAGA or whatever conspiracy theorist deep rabbit hole they're down. It's just life situations that might be hurting, that the Kelly is hurting themselves and hurting you or hurting other people. You're not saying interventions and therapy or the end all be all, but it's like you care enough. You maintain a distance from the Kelly. That Kelly has to live with themselves because you are personally not going to fix that Kelly or change that Kelly. On a side note, I apologize to anyone named Kelly out there. I mean, I don't mean to harp on you. It's just the name of this guy in the documentary. That was an interesting episode, and with this length and the direction that it took. So like I say, these episodes can go anywhere and do anything. Oh, I have a 2-minute episode next episode. Just kidding. So anyways, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.